Welcome. This is Legacy Build Your Kingdom. And I am Rudy Knapp, and I am here wrapping up a series that we had talked about for the last 5 weeks on relationships. I want to get into this final wrap up and this acronym that I created that I believe in fully to be the foundation for what makes a successful relationship. We dove into many aspects of relationships. We talked a lot about the differences between men and women. We talked about endless effort. We talked about communication. We got into many of these different parts of a relationship. What is your relationship with God? All of these intertwine to give you this sense of how can I be a better person or a better partner in a relationship? I think twice about this concept of relationships over and over again. I continue to think about this, but I had this second thought that got me into the idea of, why are we here? Why are we here on earth? What makes life fulfilling? And I'm pretty sure most people will agree that building a relationship with someone else or connections with other people or relationships in general with people is what makes life worth everything. We go through life, and if we are isolated, we are by ourselves, we never interacted with others, we never had, this connection with having children or with, having a spouse or having brothers and sisters or, even any of your intermediate family or even just friends. If you've never had relationships, you're unfulfilled. I believe God put us here to help us understand this concept of love and this concept of how to interact with one another to build these connections, and then obviously ultimately love God himself and understand that we live our lives based on the ultimate sacrifice that Jesus made for us. But the idea becomes this: if life is about relationships and connection, how do we continue to go about having these relationships where we're not bettering ourselves or we're not getting better at being in a relationship? If we continue to do that and continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, we're going to be set up for heartache. And that's part of being in this podcast here, just this conversation for me to grow as a person, to put myself out there, to be vulnerable, to be able to step outside my comfort zone. And more as I live life, especially in the last few years here, and I've realized stepping outside your comfort zone is where growth begins. And so those people that truly want this relationship with their person, their girlfriend, boyfriend, their husband, their wife, these relationships, even your relationship to grow with your kids, those people that truly want that, they will work towards it. And so I hope that people that are listening to this podcast really take a listen to some of the perspective that I have so that maybe they can apply some of that to their own lives or their own efforts. Maybe they don't. Maybe they take some of it. Maybe they take all of it. Maybe they take none of it. Either way, the concept is I'm trying to put out there for hopefully men and women to understand each other's sides here and understand what becomes a successful relationship. We can all judge each other. We can all say, okay, well, you're divorced. How could you understand that? Or we can say that about any therapist. We can say that about any person. But really, the realization of it is you've gone through it. You've been there. You understand. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from other people's mistakes. And that's what happens in life. That's how we grow. That's how we build our kingdom. We constantly are learning from what we see and what we experience and what someone else does and all the concepts of going through life. I find it really interesting on how judgmental people are because all it does is show the insecurities of themselves coming out. I've been in relationships and I will tell you, I've been in some that have been very hurtful. I mean, beyond hurtful, and some that have been very, very much rewarding. I have been in situations where I've met amazing people that I'll forever be grateful for. And, as Tony Robbins says, replace expectation with gratitude. So if you've been in some of those situations, even horrible situations, replace the concept of how horrible it was and how you had all these expectations and that person didn't meet them with the idea of being grateful for that learning lesson that you had. or maybe the things they did bring to the table. I'm forever grateful for some people. I'm forever grateful for the learning lessons I got from some people. But that doesn't mean that it hurts any less. It doesn't mean that it's even more rewarding. What it means is that I understand growth, that we're going to have to move forward and we're going to have to better ourselves in our next relationship if that's the case. Some people throw away things, and when they do that, they're not growing, they're avoiding. And so you have to ask yourself, is that relationship worth putting in the effort and learning from your mistakes and actually giving 100% to your person? So today I want to just talk about wrapping this all up. There's many conversations we'll have about relationships, probably, I'm assuming. I want to get into talking after this series ends today, get into talking maybe a little bit about what online dating's like and maybe the dating scene is like and maybe some funny stories that I've gone through. But I would also just like to wrap this up with this acronym that I created. I call it CIRCLE, you know, CIRCLE, circle. I call it this because the major components, the foundation, the pillars, if you will, of the framework of us building a relationship, us having a successful relationship. I call them pillars, just like I call my life coaching pillars, the 5 pillars of success. This concept of 5 pillars of life, I really believe in that. I believe in you have a mental aspect that you have to work on day in and day out. And when that mental aspect is worked on, all the other pillars will start to get better. But realistically, the mental capacity has to be worked on, your mental health. And then I believe that that leads to your physical health. You'll start understanding, you'll start, cherishing your body. You'll start understanding the concept of being physically fit, the health, and bringing that to the people in your kingdom. They need you around, so become healthier, make healthier choices. And then that also leads to your spiritual or your purpose in life, your spiritual uplift. I believe in your belief in God molds your life. And so if you don't have a belief in God, I understand that some people might not. But what is your purpose? Your belief in your purpose. If you're just here on earth and you have no purpose and you don't believe in God, then the concept becomes is what are you doing here? So again, what's your purpose in life? If the purpose in life we talked about is making connections, having relationships, building your kingdom, if you will, those 3 aspects of those 3 pillars so far. Then you could add in your career because you're spending time at work a lot. You have relationships at work, but your career development, your financial development, that's a big part of your pillar of life. And then you get to your 5th part, which is relationships. It's emotional intelligence. Your relationship intelligence is what I call it. It involves your emotional intellect. It involves the concept of understanding how this entire series that we've talked about with relationships, how you can better yourself in that pillar. So when we say 5 pillars of life and we talk about these things for my life coaching business, again, check out my website, lifecoaching-buildyourkingdom.com. If you check it out, just got a new client today who I'm really excited about. If you check that concept out, what you're seeing is one of those big pillars is relationships because that's what we're put here for. And so if you're just going through the motions, you're not changing and growing. I've made many mistakes that I'm going to grow from. I've made many mistakes I have been growing from. I've made so many mistakes that I had to learn some things. I've also watched many other people make many mistakes and my partners make many mistakes and I've learned from them. And so when you go through life and you start thinking about how do I make it better with my next relationship? Or how do I use what happened in this relationship to make it better with other relationships I have in my life? Then what you see is I can sit back and I can tell that my growth is helping enhance my life quality. So again, I'm going to go through communication, C for circle, communication. Again, you cannot have communication with just speaking. I've learned that the hard way sometimes. Sometimes I speak a lot and sometimes I have those ongoing conversations and it's just not about speaking. It's about speaking with intent to have the person you're speaking to understand you. It's speaking with understanding. It's also listening for understanding. So your partner and you have to be on the same page. Communication, I could flick you off. Again, I could flick you off, and that's communication. Now, is that a great communication? No, but Purposely, you have to understand we are looking to communicate for understanding. If I was trying to communicate F you, then I guess what you would say is I give you the finger, I'm communicating with you. But let's be real, in a relationship, that's not what we're going to do, because in a relationship, we want to come to a resolution. So if I'm communicating with you, I'm speaking for understanding, not just to speak. I want you to understand. And if you're listening for understanding, listening for what my perspective is, and I'm going to have to listen for what your perspective is. That is communicating. It is this constant battle of being able to speak. Sometimes we get in this, I want to speak, no, you want to speak. I had it happen many times. And the problem is that there has to be a resolution. You have to be able to listen. I don't care how long it goes, you have to be able to listen. Some people use a talking piece to ensure that one person speaks at a time. That can promote mutual understanding and prevent interruptions. Interruptions are key because you feel like the person's not listening to you when someone's interrupting. They don't care. They have no respect for you. So when you're interrupting other people during their thought process, during what they're trying to do to communicate with you, you're the problem. When you can listen and you can wait your turn, well, that shows respect, and you get respect back. So this concept of communication is huge. Everybody talks about communication as the most important. I kind of beg to differ with that one. I think it's the second most important thing. But I do believe communication is something we all have to work on. How do we get better? How do we speak to our partner? Now we start adding in the concept of tone and delivery. I have another thing I have a struggle with, but I'm pretty straightforward. But the concept is, yes, now I understand. Now I'm working on it. Now I'm trying to take a deep breath before I speak. I'm very quick to come to what I want to say. I can process very fast. Some people cannot. And so when you process that fast and you want to say what you want to say, you have to still have to take a deep breath, hold off a second, communicate in a way in which you know your partner is going to receive it. That's what I'm working on, and that's what I'm getting better at. And I really believe when people look at communication, they think it's just speaking. It's not. So that's the first pillar of this circle, or what I call how to benefit a relationship, how to create a better relationship. The second part is I, and that's initiation. I can't say this enough. It is so rewarding when you're in a relationship when someone initiates some sort of care for you. Setting up a date, initiate holding hands, initiate giving a kiss, initiate telling someone how you feel about them, initiate sending a text that says you're thinking about them, initiate giving them a piece of candy because it's their favorite little treat, bringing them sweetest fish on their first date, something that they will appreciate. Initiate. Bring the flower that represents what they love most. Show up with your favorite candy bar. Be a person that shows that they care. And when you initiate, or when your partner initiates for you, appreciate it. Initiation is such an important part to a relationship. When you don't feel your partner cares or is even thinking about you, and you're reassured with some sort of initiation, a phone call, you know, whatever the case is, it's tiny little things in life that add up to be these big monster things that create a successful relationship. It's the little things that will always make a relationship. I 100% believe that. It's not the big trips. It's not the blow you out of the water with the best date in life. It's the little things. It's helping them with something. It's, again, love languages, like we talked about in this podcast, in this series, knowing your partner's love language, understanding that your partner's love language is certain things. It's the concept of you paying attention. It's you giving effort. We'll get to that in a second, but initiating something doesn't always have to be sex. That is a great way to put it as well, though. If you're in a relationship that is a loving relationship, yes, initiate sex. Don't wait for one person to do it. Please understand that, how important that is for men, how important it is for women. You be the one that initiates. So going on to our respect. I've said it many times, I'll say it again. Men thrive off of respect. When they feel respected, when they feel that the person respects them, their opinion, their leadership, their judgments, their words, all the things. their protection, everything, what they stand for. When you respect them, they will give you everything they can. They will respect you back. When you disrespect a woman, man, you lose so much inside her that of how she thinks about you. You know, it's horrible, and I know it happens, and we all go through certain things, and there's arguments, and people say words, and I normally wouldn't be that way. I know I have done that in relationships, and it's awful because I feel that regret inside me. If you say things that you can't take back, words do hurt. I've been experiencing that. I've been told by people that it does. I believe actions hurt 10 times worse than words. I believe that when your actions show disrespect, it kills men inside. I believe that when your words show disrespect, it kills women inside. Both vice versa, men and women, words, actions. Respect is so important. And if you don't respect your partner, then how can you continue on with this circle? How can you continue on in this relationship to become successful? You have to give the respect that they deserve. Remember, you want to be there. You want to be in this relationship. You want it to be successful. So give respect. The next C is commitment. You can't be 1 foot in a relationship, 1 foot out. I learned that that's really hard when you're hurt or you're damaged or you're healing. It's very difficult to be in a committed relationship because when you get to a committed relationship, you got to be all in. I've said this many times in relationships like, hey, you're all in. If you're all in, I'm all in, and now we're going to fight for everything we can to get to us being in a successful relationship. When you are not all in and you are allowing people to influence your decisions, or you're allowing people to change your what your heart is telling you, you're not committed. Committed is looking at your partner and saying, we're going to work through this, even when it's hell, even when we're struggling, even when there's a fight, and even when we don't agree on certain things, we're all in to find this resolution to move forward. I'm with you, you're with me, and it doesn't matter what happens, we're going to be together at the end of the day. Commitment, that means not letting outside sources come between you, not listening to other people trying to entertain you, not get out of those DMs, not having a conversation with other people. Oh, it's just flirty. Oh, it's just something. No, that doesn't exist. You're committed. You have respect for your person. Remember that. And then there's L, love. I think the best way to describe love, number one, it is a choice. Love is a choice. It's not just a feeling, it's a choice. I think the hard part about love that most people think is, well, I love somebody, I'm just caring for them. We love a lot of people. I love my students, I care about them. I love my kids, I love certain things. That's a different kind of love. When you love your spouse, you love your person. This is your person. It is my definition is it's when you put someone else before your own needs. Their needs come before your own needs. And I said this before and I'll say it again. When your person hurts, you hurt. If your person doesn't feel good, you don't feel good. If you don't help your person with the needs that they need in that relationship over your own, you're not successful. This relationship doesn't work. You put your partner before yourself, and they will do the same for you, and it becomes a successful relationship. Love exists when you stop being selfish and only caring about yourself, and you put the success of that relationship above your own needs. Now, does that mean that your needs don't exist? No, they do. And your partner is going to see that. And your partner is going to put your needs first as well. So now you're both getting your needs met. But your relationship also has to come between or come before. Sometimes the relationship in general has to come before both of your needs. And you're not going to see eye to eye at times. But you love your partner enough that you have enough respect for them to sit back and say, you know what? My partner needs this. I'm giving the 80% today while he can only give the 20%. Or he's giving me the 70% when I only give the 30%. When you stop at all costs and you tell your partner, no matter the mistakes they've made, you are still standing here because we're in the fire together. You are committed. I'm still here. I still have needs. You still have work to do. I'm still standing here. Then you better appreciate and understand how much love that is. Love is not just us standing here and going, oh, it's a feeling. Believe me, I believe there is a feeling when it comes to the person that you're with, and that's the connection that you're supposed to be with. There's a different kind of feeling when you make a connection with somebody, a certain connection, but it's a choice. You choose to love that person. You choose to go in all in, right? That commitment. And then there's E for effort. Again, this is the foundation. This is the number one. If you ask me, effort, endless effort is the most important thing in a relationship. I believe that because with endless effort comes communication or bettering your communication. It comes your initiation. It comes with respect. It comes with commitment. It comes with love. But effort, endless effort. You're constantly in a relationship. You're constantly dating. You're constantly wanting your partner to feel loved. You're constantly, you know, reassuring. You're constantly involved in this relationship without letting it get to a point where you're so stagnant, it doesn't matter. It always should matter what your partner feels. It always should matter that the little things matter and that you're going to do things for your partner or you're going to show up for them emotionally and physically. It always should matter. Effort is one of the most important things you can give to anyone. Now, the most important thing you can give to anyone is time. Well, that comes with all this circle. So, the idea for time is that you respect your partner enough that you're putting in that effort, that you're initiating, that you're committed, that you're communicating well, so that this whole thing works. Now, I want you to picture this. I want you to picture holding your partner's hand, both hands. So you form a circle. You have this circle in front of you. And in this circle, someone once told me, nobody gets inside that circle. And if you believe in this and you believed in this concept of this circle and all of those aspects of the circle, the core pillars of that circle, then you don't let anyone inside that circle. You're holding hands with your partner. You're both holding hands. You're looking at each other in each other's eyes. You're showing how much you love each other with that affection, that initiation, that respect, that commitment to one another. That means nobody's opinions come inside that circle. Not your friends' opinions, not your parents' opinions, not your kids' opinions, not anyone else that's outside of that circle. It is you two, and you are in this. This is your circle. Here's the biggest thing about why I created this acronym called CIRCLE. When you have a circle and you're holding hands with your partner, it is reciprocal. It is you give, I give. It is I give, you give. I give, I communicate with you for understanding. I listen for understanding. You communicate for understanding, and I'm going to listen. You listen for understanding. I'm going to communicate for understanding. We are going to go back and forth reciprocal. I'm initiating, you're initiating. It's not just one partner is initiating all the time. It is both partners initiating. And that doesn't mean sex always. It means initiate things that show that you care. When both partners do this, both partners put their partner on their mind before anything else, it works. I give you respect, you give me respect. Reciprocal. I'm committed, you're committed. Nobody comes inside our circle. No outside DMs, none of that stuff comes inside our circle. Love. I show you love. Every single day I put your needs before mine. You do the same for me. It is reciprocal. And effort. You are building and constantly understanding that endless effort in this relationship is needed from both of you. You are constantly working on the relationship and what you can for your partner, and I'm doing the same. We are back and forth. This is reciprocal. So picture that circle, picture holding your partner's hands, looking in their eyes, understanding these pillars of what a good relationship is. You are in a good relationship when you can communicate, you can initiate, you can respect, you can commit, you can love, and you can give effort. You are in a pretty good relationship when both of your partners do it. What happens when only one partner does it, though? What happens when only one partner is initiating? It falls apart. Your pillars start cracking. It's not working. What happens when one person's giving all the effort and the other one doesn't? They run and hide. What happens when one person's committed and the other one can't stay committed? They're sneaking around, they're lying, they're entertaining. What happens when one person's communicating and the other person's shutting down? What happens when one person shows disrespect and one person deserves that respect? What happens when one person is involved in this relationship and the other one isn't? It doesn't work. That's why we don't have successful relationships. The circle breaks down. Someone lets someone inside your circle to change your mind on things, to convince you of other things. Someone doesn't give back and doesn't reciprocate what their partner is giving them. You've all heard it before. We all understand. Relationships, some people say it's one sided. Some people say this person's better than the other person. I don't know where that comes from, but the concept becomes is this: there's nothing better. If you think they're better because they look better than you or look better, I mean, that's all superficial crap. The realization of it is what kind of person are you? That's what makes you better than the other person. You're not looking for better. You're looking for someone to reciprocate what you give. So if you find the right partner, you find that connection, you find the person that you want to be with, and you can handle these core pillars of a successful relationship, and you give that effort, you get into this, you will have a successful relationship. You just have to find the partner that's willing to do the same for you. Do not accept you doing and them not. I had to learn this the hard way. Didn't matter how much I tried, didn't matter how much effort I gave, didn't matter how much I got into it, didn't matter how much. I always thought I can give more and more and more and more, and they will understand. She will understand. Nope, because some people are not willing to do that for you. And some people are not willing to go through and find that those qualities are needed. They accept enough, never accept enough. Oh, excuse me. The concept is when you find that person that gives the same as what you give, that reciprocal circle will always be successful. It is a bond that you will have as long as you both understand those aspects of these core pillars. You'll never break. That's why you see successful relationships from high school on. Not that they're not going to go through hardship. There's going to be times where you feel like you're not being respected and you have to have conversations. You have to communicate. You have to go round and round. It is a circle. It's going to always come back. There are going to be times where things go hard and get rough. There's things that come between. And maybe you don't feel the effort that you have a conversation about. There's communication again. But remember you love one another. Remember you want to be there. Remember that it takes effort. Remember that it takes two people, not just one. And remember you have to look in the mirror at yourself. Because you can stand here and say semantics, I did this once. It's endless. You have to look in the mirror at your own self and say, was I a good partner? Am I being a good partner? Am I being true to this relationship? Did I do the things I was supposed to? How can I fix that? It's called accountability. Look in the mirror. Look at yourself. So if you're in a relationship that's struggling right now, you better reset. Go back to this. Look at the circle and ask yourself, are you doing these things? And start doing them. Watch the world of difference that happens in your partner. Watch how they treat you. Because when you give, you will get. Everybody always says you give respect, you get respect, right? The idea becomes the same thing with all parts of this. So I hope you took something from this perspective. I hope you look at this acronym, use it in your relationship, go back, talk to your partner, communicate with them for understanding, say, hey, I think we need to start following some of these and talk about communication, initiation, respect, commitment, love, effort. Make sure you have all parts of this relationship and make sure you're both equally working on this. This is something that is reciprocal. You're never going to have 50-50. What you're going to have is sometimes they give more effort than you at times, and sometimes you initiate more than they do at times. Sometimes you're better at communication than they are. Sometimes, we get into this concept of them showing love versus you showing love. You have to know your deficiencies by looking in the mirror. That's the only way we show growth. Have a conversation, listen for understanding. So I'm going to leave you with this. Here's a quote that I found that I thought was really kind of hits home here. And I hope that you take this with you. Life hits different when you prioritize reciprocal in your circle and remove those who lack effort. Give you the bare minimum or don't reciprocate. Support those who support you. Invest in those who invest in you. Value those who value you. Grow with those who grow with you. Listen to that. Find your circle, find your person. Signing off.